Still breathing.
Yeah, right. That'd be awesome. Actually, cool. I'll need it.
Call the meeting to order. This is the January 12, 2016 meeting of the Town Plan and Zoning Commission of the Town of Fairfield. First item on the agenda is bills and communications, the meeting minutes from December 15, 2015. Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Alessi. Second.
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Barretts. Everybody have a copy? Any comments, questions, changes? Good? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are adopted unanimously. Next item is 356 Black Rock Turnpike, request of Rajat Gupta for 100% release of a $16,727.50 bond pertaining to special exception improvements in the design commercial district.
Mr. Chairman, this was the former Fairfield Lighting Store that has now been transformed to Bright Beginnings Daycare. Several meetings ago, this commission approved a 50% release. They've subsequently completed the work. You've got memos or emails in your file from both the engineering department and the tree warden concluding that they've satisfactorily completed the bonded improvements and recommending release.
Very good. Thank you. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve it?
Motion to approve by Commissioner Coleman,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. We have a note in the file. Anybody have any questions?
No.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The bond is released unanimously. Next item is a closed executive session to discuss pending litigation regarding 309 Barberry Road.
I'll make a motion to go and close executive session.
Motion by Commissioner Alessi,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Kennelly. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions?
Now that you're all comfortable, we're going to move over to the library.
Very good. Thank you. We're in closed executive session. Call the meeting back to order. We are out of closed executive session. We received an update on pending litigation from town attorney. No votes were taken and no decisions were made. Next item on the agenda is new applications to recommend a public hearing. 70 Reef Road, special permit application of Oceana Mediterranean Taverna for enclosure of an outdoor dining area in the Center Design District.
I don't have anything on this, Mr. Chairman, other than it's a special permit and requires a public hearing.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman?
Motion to move to public hearing by Commissioner Kennelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Francis. This is required. Any questions? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Moves to public hearing unanimously. Next is 8 Bloomfield Drive, zoning compliance application of Turk Properties LLC for a 9-unit set-aside residential development pursuant to Connecticut General Statute Section 830G in an R3 zone.
Once again, this is as it is described. It's just a site plan application. There are no proposed regulation amendments or anything. They're just looking for approval of a site plan for a 9-unit development, 3 units of which would have to be deed restricted affordable, and assuming you guys want to put this to public hearing.
Motion to move to public hearing, Mr. Chairman?
Motion by Commissioner Kennelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Francis. Anybody have any questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Moves to public hearing unanimously. Next item is old business, 1851 North Benson Road, re-subdivision application of Van Broek Estates, LLC, for 2 lots in an A zone.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to go over briefly what was presented to you at the public hearing. which we completed at our last meeting. As the notice states, this is a re-subdivision of an oversized lot fronting on North Benson Road, which is Connecticut Route 135. It's in the A zone. The minimum lot size, as you know, is 9,375 square feet. The proposed lot areas would be for Lot A, as designated on the site plan, 11,520 square feet, and for Lot B, proposed is 13,733 square feet. The existing parcel has a house and a driveway curb cut. The proposed Lot A would utilize the existing curb cut. A portion of the existing house would remain on the proposed Lot B, which would also have a new curb cut. As reported at the public hearing, the engineering department has reviewed the submitted site distance plan and profile. The state, and as well, the state DOT has reviewed and approved this plan. The plan involves the removal, as reported at the hearing, of 4 trees from the right-of-way to establish the proper sight line. Concrete sidewalks and 2 new concrete driveway aprons are also proposed. The engineering department reports that the new sidewalk can be set back off the curb and shall be 5 feet in width. Public, as you know, was reported, public water and sewer are available. Some recommended conditions that would, if you were so to approve this, as mentioned at the hearing, would include a plan showing the revised date for the plan that was reviewed at the hearing. There was a plan that had all the revisions. It was stamped from our office, but there was no revision date. So the board did, I think a condition would be, appropriate condition would be that you receive that plan with the appropriate revision date. And it was, there was a condition there was a stone wall, there was discussion about a stone wall, whether or not the existing stone walls would be preserved. We would be recommending a condition and the applicant actually offered this, to preserve the stone wall mentioned at the public hearing. That, Mr. Chairman, was what was reported at the public hearing.
Okay. Thank you. So, just for clarity, because the letter we have from, or the email we have from Ms. Pooley also mentions many of the things that you just did about the plans and the like. That's dated December 3rd. So since December 3rd, they haven't fixed any of those issues in the record? They haven't submitted a revised plan with the dates and things like that?
No, my understanding is most of the issues that Laura Pooley wanted to be taken care of was on the plan, but if you remember, there was some confusion, if Jim can find the plan. The revision date was incorrect, or there wasn't a revision date.
Correct, but she also makes a mention of the removal of trees.
The 4 trees for the line of
Right.
sight.
And-
That was in the original, that was in the distance plan and profile that was reviewed by the state of Connecticut.
The removal of the trees was
Yep.
confirmed
Yes,
in
sir.
that.
The sidewalk still has to be set back.
Right. Okay.
The bottom line is, I think it would be, as we have in the past, if, along with the conditions I've recommended, if we were to condition your approval on whatever Ms. Pooley requests, but my understanding is that has all been reviewed and approved.
How much time do we have on this application?
To vote?
Yeah,
You got till February 18th,
when's our next meeting?
January
26th of this month.
Okay.
All right. That's all the questions I had then before, so do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Table. A motion to table by Commissioner Alessi.
Quick question, I believe Commissioner Coleman had recused herself.
I'm sorry, thank you.
So-
She did, and she left the table. Thank you, Commissioner Noonan. So for the record, Commissioner Coleman has recused herself from this item, and she left the table before the summary was provided by Mr. Wen. I'm sorry, Mr. Devancha.
Which one of those guys?
So,
We actually need both, because Mr. Kennelly was not at the public hearing either.
okay.
Both
Easy enough, okay.
You
For the
did?
sake of tonight's...
Right, I'll take it tonight, but if we can postpone it, I can watch the public hearing.
Okay, good. So for the purposes of tonight, Mr. Kennelly is also recusing himself because he's not up to speed. If we do postpone it, if the motion to table is successful, then you'll have time
So we'll need
to
both
get up to
Mr.
speed.
Corcoran and Mr. Noonan.
Okay, so the two alternates, Mr. Corcoran and Mr. Noonan, are now participating on this item this evening. Okay, so that's it procedurally, right? All right, so one other thing, yes?
Just a question. Are you interested in receiving some additional information?
Well, I guess we'll hear about that in a
Okay.
moment when we talk about the motion.
That's a good point.
All right. So we have a motion to table. Do I have a second for that? Second by Commissioner McAleese. All right. So
I was gonna suggest we table this until, we can get a sign off from Laura Pooley on all that is listed here in her letter dated December 3rd.
All right.
The
we'll get you
outstanding
additional
items.
sign-
All the outstanding items.
you know, there are a fair number. It's not
I mean,
just, you know.
it's not one, two, there's quite a
I
few.
got you.
So my suggestion would be table this, and if we receive these and Laura signs off on it in the 2 weeks, I can't see any,
Okay.
reason why not to
We can do
bring it back then.
No problem.
Get all the ducks in a row on the application.
Okay.
All right. Is anyone else, would you like to? No comments? Anyone else?
Is Jeff Reminder from,
You need to use the microphone. Commissioner Francis,
is Jeff Reminder from State DOT?
sorry.
Jeffrey Minder is the town's tree warden.
Oh, all right. He recommends installing 3 trees.
Correct.
Okay. Commissioner Barron.
I mean, the sight lines, that's, I mean, I'm kind of debating I'm debating the application, not the motion to table, but just, I was just concerned, because I mean, I saw her say that the last note was that they were inadequate, and then she, said she reviewed it, but she wasn't sure about the plan dates, and there was a whole bunch of other things, so is that okay? I mean, we're gonna be getting additional post-hearing information.
No.
We can't get any post-hearing information from the applicant,
Right.
but we can get it from staff and town personnel.
Right, now, yeah, I understood.
She will confirm that that information has been, she's satisfied.
Right, but I'm saying, suppose she doesn't have that, when there's no mention of this, how are we gonna gather
We can't
things that
approve
she
it.
doesn't have?
Well, if there isn't, then
Okay.
there's
Then
something
I-
else you have to do then.
Then I would be inclined to support the motion to table it, just to see make sure we have a complete response, at least from our town engineers.
But basically, that's all I want, is I want an answer from Laura on these items that she said. If she says, well, I haven't, or they haven't been satisfactory, then that's for us to decide at that time in 2 weeks, saying, okay, Laura hasn't been satisfied on these things.
Okay. Not a problem.
I mean, it doesn't have to be approved by table.
I mean, I think you do raise fair points. We're injecting ourselves in the review, by the town engineer. We have another meeting in 2 weeks. We got time to do it, and they've got time to get the review done, so why wouldn't we do that? All right. Okay. Any other discussion on the item? Okay, motion is to table. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have one abstention. So the item, motion to table is carried unanimously. We have one abstention.
Cool. Do you have that? Who abstained from that?
She refused to sign.
Recuse, I'm sorry. We had one recused.
They voted to abstain.
Jen refused to sign.
Well, I can't vote on it. You had a 7-0 vote.
It was it was a unanimous vote to table.
Unanimous
as we
vote to
understand.
table. Did I just completely get that one wrong? Wow.
We'll fill in the blanks.
Maybe at first. All right. Unanimously approved to table. Very good. Next item is 54 Sasko Hill Road, zone change application of Love Where You Live LLC to establish a Residence A zone on land presently zoned Design Commercial District.
What I'll do, Mr. Chairman, as you know, this is 2 separate applications. It requires 2 separate actions. Just to get this through quickly, as far as the overview, I'll just go through the whole presentation relatively quick, very quickly. And then, essentially, the sequence of action you would first address the zone change request, and then pending the answer or the reaction to that, then you would move on to the the application, which is a coastal site plan review for the construction of the home. So again, I'll just go really briefly over what was presented to you, and then we'll break it down to the two actions. As you know, this applicant is requesting a coastal site plan review for property located at 4054 Saskville Hill for a single-family residential residence. The property is currently located in the design commercial district zone, and the applicant has filed, as we know, with the Planning and Zoning Commission, a proposed zone change to residential A. The said property has sole access to Saskville Hill. The property currently contains an existing one-story, 1,754 square foot commercial building that has been used as a professional office. The applicant proposes to construct a 2.5-story, 3,114 square foot single-family residence. The proposed plan will not require any proposed variances of the residential A zone. This lot is currently non-conforming as to the design commercial district zoning requirements for minimum lot size and minimum square. The existing lot size is 8,290 square feet. The required minimum lot size in a design commercial district is 10,000 square feet. The minimum square for the DCD is 75 square feet, and the existing square on this property is 50. Under the proposed Zone A designation request, the lot would remain non-conforming as to minimum lot. The minimum lot area in our A zone, as you know, is 9,375 square feet. And again, as I mentioned, the existing lot size here is 8,290 square feet. And to the square, again, 75 foot square is required, 50 exists. And this would be the lot would be non-conforming as to the A zone requirements for frontage. As you know, somewhat recent zone change of ours requires the frontage be consistent with the square on the lot. So the frontage would be 75 square feet, and the existing is 52 square feet. So that just gets you to that. All right. Some of the just other conditions that were described at the hearing having to do with the construction of the home, specifically with the coastal resource use policies in play. The plan is generally consistent as reported with the coastal resource and use policies. However, two proposed conditions are suggested to improve the coastal consistency based on reports that we received from the state. One, the proposed wall that is to the rear of the proposed dwelling, parallel to Mill River, should be eliminated. And number two, when this takes place, the proposed dwelling footprint should be shifted easterly toward Saskville Hill Road so that the house is no closer to Mill River than the existing structure. If you remember the site plan, there was a slight adjustment toward the river. This would be recommended to move it back to where it is now. Some other site plan conditions that was discussed at the hearing. A proposed easement of access and parking exists between this parcel and an adjacent property. The access easement in favor of the adjacent property, which is 56 Saskville Hill Road, is shown on the site plan, and as well as an existing parking area. And while the zoning commission do not enforce private easements, reducing the length of a proposed stone wall along the adjacent property is a recommended condition to assure access to the existing parking area that's identified as part of that access easement. Now, to the zone change application portion of this, the applicant reported. The applicant requests, again, as I mentioned, a zone change of the property located here at 54 Saskville Hill from design commercial district to residential A zone. The said property, as mentioned, has sole access to Saskville Hill Road and no frontage on Post Road. The applicant felt that because of this, the subject property, which does not front, in their opinion, the true commercial corridor of the DCD, and that the extension of the DCD zone, even though it currently exists, the extension of the DCD zone to include subject property represented an encroachment of the commercial zone in a residential zone. The reason why I mentioned this, even though it was there, based on the fact that there is no frontage There is a policy that we have in our Plan of Conservation Development which states, and the applicant felt would be consistent with the fact that encroachment of commercial zones in this neighborhood and residential areas should be discouraged. That, in a nutshell, is pretty much what was presented in front of the commission. The last thing I'll mention to you here is just the standards, conditions, or considerations for zone change. I'll hold that off unless there's any questions. And then, when you're ready to start to act, as you know, we have to do the zone change application first, and then we can go back and, depending on how that goes, discuss the special permit.
Right, well, why don't you go ahead and review the standards for the zone change? That's the first item, which
Yep.
has been called, and that will be the first one we take up.
Okay. As you know, state statutes enable this commission to not only amend their regulations, but to amend zoning districts in our town. These reasons that I'll mention to you are outlined not only in the state statute, but have been developed through court actions that have helped to identify and describe your authority to make these changes. Number one, and you've all heard these before, is the proposed change consistent with the plan of conservation development? As you remember, there was some discussion about that at the hearing. Number two, does time, experience, and reasonable planning for contemporary or future conditions reasonably indicate the need for the proposed zone change? Number three, have circumstances in the neighborhood changed substantially enough to merit the requested zone change? Number four, has it been demonstrated that the proposed zone change is warranted and would serve the general health, welfare, and safety of the town of Fairfield? Number five, does the proposed zone change promote a level of development that would serve to protect property values in the neighborhood and enhance the community? And number six, would the proposed zone change permit a level of development that would increase undue traffic congestion? That, Mr. Chairman, are the findings that you need to consider when proposing or reviewing a proposal for a zone amendment or zone change.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody have a motion?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman, for special permit.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Alessi. Commissioner Kelly?
I find myself in agreement with sort of both of the rationales of the opposing councils who spoke before us, in the sense that, for now, leaving things as is doesn't strike me as particularly a terrible option, because, you know, how things have worked currently and in the past has been okay. I'm leaning towards supporting the application because of the future. When I look at this, is the application consistent with the plan of development? Yeah, I tend to think so. Probably more residential here in the long run is better than any potential for commercial. Our future, so future conditions, yeah, I think that probably long term it's better to have residential definitively there. Have things changed? Yeah, they have changed. We had Sandy. Clearly, whatever's built there is going to have to eventually be FEMA compliant. Do I think that it enhances the neighborhood if you make this change? Yeah, I think locking down that it's going to be residential would probably be beneficial to the neighbors near Sasko Hill. I understand completely. I live in a neighborhood where I wouldn't want anything to change in terms of the underlying zoning, and you get a bigger building. And I'm sure plenty of folks who oppose this are going to talk about the high bar here in terms of things like the frontage and all the rest, but I'll leave it up to those folks who might oppose this to discuss that. Obviously, as a matter of traffic, I would think that a residential structure long-term is going to be less traffic than a commercial structure. Ultimately, what tipped the balance for me is two things. We had presentations here by both the attorney for a very significant commercial client and a neighbor who already has a small strip of commercial property that he very much does not want changed because of a future interest. Now, as it stands, you can't really do much with the current applied property in terms of commercial. We already shot down a proposal like that's basically the applicant left after the public outcry. But when I look at this from a matter of future conditions here, and we have a fairly broad discretion, this is essentially our legislative capacity when we change a zone. When I look at this in the long term, what I see is the potential for that fairly large commercial development nearby, and then the smaller owner of a sliver of the commercial down the line, when this property owner is perhaps rejected and doesn't really know what to do, well, maybe they sell out, and now some sort of consolidation or something like that occurs, and eventually you would see a conforming with the properties consolidated, presentation for a commercial use. And for me, at least, that potential threat is such that even if I was a neighbor who would prefer the status quo ante, I would like things to stay as they are, and I would understand that completely, I still would want to maybe have a little bit of a stronger, understanding of the future. Because to me, at least what's floating out there is something that I think would be potentially not as good for the neighborhood, at least from my perspective, having run and driven through the neighborhood a number of times and been there. I used to run with Pequot runners and stuff. I know the area pretty, from being down there. But for me, what I'd like is some surety there. And whether this particular applicant and owner, who couldn't seem to get out of their own way presenting to us, is the one that eventually comes before us and gets a change, or a much more effective and coordinated applicant comes before us and looks to put commercial there, which I think would add traffic, degrade values, and not be good for the neighborhood. For me, I think that tips it for me that I would support the applicant here so that I have some certainty on this spot. So that's how I'm leaning.
Thank you. Yep. Commissioner Coleman?
I'm leaning toward denying the application. I agree with much of what Commissioner Kennelly said. I found myself in the position of empathizing with virtually everybody involved in it. I can empathize with the neighbors who don't want to see some big monstrous thing go up. I can empathize with the property owner who invested in this property and finds himself blocked at every turn. We turned him down for a mixed-use application, and now he's got a residential one that has provoked some neighborhood response. After I got over my surge of empathy, I started to think about it and say, well, I'm discounting the pleas of the neighbors to maintain the property as is. You only are entitled to a view over another person's property if you pay for it. And nobody has paid for it. They had the option of buying the property themselves if they wanted to retain it exactly as it was, and nobody did that. And I don't think it's reasonable to say that the current owner should make no changes to it. So that went off the table. As to leaving it residential or commercial, leaving it commercial or zoning it residential, the criteria, as Mr. Devanchuk said, for a change, talk to a compelling need in the overall good of the community. Right now, as a commercial property, it has 3 areas of nonconformity, and as a residential property, it would have 7 areas of nonconformity. It's hard to see that as a move to the positive. Again, if it is retained as a commercial property and some modest commercial building goes up, it would be, again, come before town planning and zoning, where we would have the ability to judge whether what is being proposed is in fact in conformance with the neighborhood and not likely to be a massive and therefore obtrusive structure. With residential, it's out of our hands at that point, and I don't see a compelling need to rezone it into something that would be even more non-conforming. So I would urge that we deny the application.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Barrett?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote to approve this application, and the main reason is really what Commissioner Coleman just spoke about. I have just a fundamental issue when we talk about non-conforming. When you look at a property that's non-conforming, you say, well, it's still not conforming. This is different. It's commercially non-conforming for a set of reasons. I have a fundamental issue with creating a residential lot that's not buildable by our regulations. We go through subdivision applications, we hear them, the department hears site plans, building, and it's a very objective measure. There's no discretion there. It either meets it or it doesn't. And I have a fundamental problem with creating a new residential lot that doesn't meet 4 different dimensions of our regulations. It's not, well, it's not, yeah, it's non-conforming now as commercial. It's different being non-conforming as residential. And I just have a problem with creating a residential lot. I don't disagree that, maybe residential is probably the least intense use, but imagine, the lot is too small. That's what it is. It's not shaped correctly. We didn't create that. That's how it evolved. It's just where we are right now. So, I guess, thinking about planning, I think it could stay commercial. It shouldn't have to stay, I agree, as it is now. Some commercial use, some modest commercial use, small, recognizing that they're going to have to go higher because of FEMA compliance, I think, for me, from planning, is what I would like to see there. The mixed use, by the way, that was not actually denied by our commission. That was withdrawn. Right. I'm not saying we would have voted for it, against it, or whatever, but that was just withdrawn. And just in terms of whether guidance I personally give to the applicant, I'd say a more modest development than what we've seen. And I'm just not inclined to create a non-conforming residential lot where it didn't exist at all before. So that's my main reason.
Thank you. Commissioner Alessi? Yep.
I agree with Commissioner Coleman and Commissioner Barrett. We're going from 3 non-conformings to 7. I don't think it meets our standards for a zone change here. I do agree with Commissioner Barrett just said that we didn't even have a chance to vote on the application. It was withdrawn the first time around. I do agree that some sort of commercial property should be put there, raised, because it has to be to meet the FEMA compliant, and in modest and also in harmony with Sasko Hill Road. I mean, I think it should be sensitive, a commercial property sensitive to the neighbors and the neighborhood. And modest in size will not create such an undue traffic situation there. I mean, we're not talking a huge, occupancy in a building that size that it's going to be. So I'm going to deny this zone change. I'd like to see a raised commercial building there at some point.
Thank you. Sure. Commissioner Francis?
I'm satisfied that it provides good buffer. Thank you. I'm satisfied that it provides a good buffer zone between the residential and commercial, and I agree with the commissioners who've said that we should not be creating a zone that is less compliant than it is now.
Thank you. Anyone else? So, yeah, I appreciate all the comments. Thanks very much. Everybody's obviously given this a lot of thought, as have I. I'm not going to belabor the record with repeating the themes. I agree with Commissioner Barrett, Commissioner Coleman, Commissioner Alessi. I looked at this from the planning perspective that we must, and we would never create a zone where there was a sliver of commercial left on a residential parcel sandwiched in between a commercial and this. We would never do that. Why are we going to do that here? And so there had to be, for me, some really compelling reasons, such as the other factors that are listed, it's changed circumstances, or time and experience indicates the need for a change, and consistent with the POCD. I mean, none of those factors are present. So I'm going to be voting against I'm going to vote to deny the zone change. And I would also note for the record that the portions of the POCD that the applicant put up as being consistent and in favor of the zone change are really in a posit. The purpose of that section, that commercial should not, encroach on residential, is where you've got a residential area for which you're seeking a zone change to commercial, to change residential into commercial, not the other way around. So I didn't, and there's no other citation, because there is none to support this. So I'm in alignment there. Any other comments, discussion? Are we ready to vote? Okay. So the motion on the table is to approve. So a vote in the affirmative approves the zone change. A vote to deny is against the zone change. Right? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Opposed? Any abstentions? So the item is denied, 6-1. Next item is 54 Sasko Hill Road, coastal site plan application of Love Where You Live LLC pertaining to the construction of a single-family dwelling.
Yeah, I think the one issue to be considered here is whether or not it's a permitted use or not. What's being proposed is not a permitted use, so I guess I would recommend you deny this special permit,
Okay.
the application.
Very good. Motion by Mr. Kennelly, Commissioner Kennelly to deny. Second by Commissioner Alessi. So, because the zone change was denied, there really is no other way to vote on this one. Any other comments? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion to deny is unanimous. Next item is compliance. 3546 Post Road, compliance application of Biagio Riccio for a sign plan in the Design Commercial District.
Okay, this property is at the corner of the Post Road and Hulls Highway. It's been in the process of being renovated from 2 storefronts into a single food facility with takeout. Food, what you have before you is a single proposed dimensional brushed stainless steel letters. It is not internally illuminated, in keeping with the storefront design that they are implementing. It is approximately 26 square feet, or 27 square feet, I'm sorry, 26 and change. It is it's fully compliant with our sign regulations.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Kennelly.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Alessi.
I had one question for staff. In the two designs we were presented with, the one that looks like a photograph and the one that looks like, an artist rendering. The artist rendering has what looks like, the kind of illustration has what looks like little lights overhead, and it's not, I mean, I guess they could have those lights. They say nothing about, they say here that there's not going to be any electric in this. Is there going to be
well, the
no
letters won't
electrics
illuminate.
involved?
They're permitted to
Right.
have exterior illumination as long as it's downward casting and
Right,
not
right.
upward, but the letters themselves are not.
So no electrics involved here, would just mean the letter? Okay,
Correct.
That's fine.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, discussion? Yes.
I just have sort of a technical question. Looking at the, I guess it's the sort of photorealistic image. Are we talking about that whole gray area and down the sides as well? Or is it just the text?
No, it's just the box that's around the sign
Just around the
itself.
organic?
If you look at the second page,
Yeah.
even though the word kitchen is in a smaller letter, we would consider the size of that sign 142 inches long by the full 27 inches in height, even though the Organica letters are only 19.5.
Okay.
It's not, that outline of what's behind there, if you go look at it, but this picture was taken before the door was installed. That storefront is basically a big, large accordion glass door that can open fully in good weather. So it's kind of, that facade, it was designed as part of the facade, not to be part of the sign, so it would just be the box.
That's
around
like
the
trim
letters.
casing, kind of.
Yeah, yes.
Glorified casing. Okay.
Yeah, but it's an excellent question because this commission has the authority, if there is a coloring or design pattern that's manifestly designed to be part of the sign, you can include it in the overall size of the sign, and then it would have to comply with that requirement. But that is not the case here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Motion is to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Sign plans approved unanimously. Next item is public hearing. Do we need a moment to reconfigure? No? Very good. First item is 300 Quincy Street, request of Alfonso Camarada Jr. for a 100% release of a $17,799 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an A zone. Uh-oh. No? I'll call it again. 300 Quincy Street? Anyone here? Okay. The next item is 229 and 245 Lakeside Drive, request of David Leggiadaro for 100% release of a $9,140 bond pertaining to subdivision improvements in an A zone. And I apologize if I mispronounced it. Thank you, I'm sorry. So I think you need to just come up to the podium and make the formal request. There's not a whole lot of magic to it, although our regulations do require that you make the request at a public hearing and that others be given an opportunity to comment if they have any comments.
I'd like to have my bond back. It's actually a CD at People's Bank.
I love it. That's perfect.
Which I took out in 2006.
Well done, well done.
So there's actually a couple $100 more on that.
It's good, it's good. Fantastic. Thank you.
All right.
Is there any member of the public that wishes to be heard? No? Very good. So before I close it, I'll just explain briefly. So the bond is to secure the work to be done, and the public hearing is required so that if there are people who don't think the work is actually done, they have a problem with it, they can come in and they can challenge it. So nobody here challenges you. I'll call Quincy Street again. Nobody's here for Quincy Street? Okay. I'll close the public hearing on this item, and I'll adjourn the meeting.